Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 26th of April, comes to you from New York City. Here seeing clients today, and interesting seeing how the US markets are rallying while I'm here. So stocks really being the key feature. But we start by looking at currencies first. The dollar index is just starting to come off the bottom here at 98.75, so it has reached some of these targets, but no real clear signs of a reversal yet. We need to get through the cloud, and the resistance on the cloud at the moment is at about 99.50. So we are just going lower at the moment, and taking that March low, we're just sitting below that. Another day or two below that level, and we will probably go lower still, but the long-term picture still remains bullish, of course. It's just this medium and short term. But the dollar is up a little bit today, and then euro is just coming back a little bit, but still bullish above the cloud in the medium and short term. The euro needs to get above 112, really, 113 maybe, on the long-term weekly chart for us to be confident that we've got the beginning of a new uptrend in the euro. We do have these downside targets still hanging over us on the euro, so it's by no means a bullish chart in the longer term. And there's a shortage of short-term upside targets as well, and certainly not to those levels of 112, 113 that are needed to break into a new trend. Japanese yen, the dollar is improving strongly, so weaker yen, which is playing out in the stocks, and we'll look at that in a minute. And sterling just holding on to its gains. It jumped on the UK election last week, UK election announcement, and it's just held those gains. But again, bullish in the medium term, but the long-term picture is still a bearish one. Against the dollar, we'd need to break really the 140 mark for the moment to turn bullish, and that's hard to see right now. Looking at sterling against the euro, sterling has been falling against a stronger euro of late, but the medium-term trend is that sterling looks stronger than the euro. And looking at the Swiss franc, sterling fairly flat, and against the Australian dollar rising quite strongly. That's due to a weaker Australian dollar. Looking at the S&P 500 index, this is really the big story. Just starting to break to new highs here, not quite getting through that March high at about 2400, but very, very close now, and it looks like a foregone conclusion that we will break to higher levels. We've got an upside target of 2,780 on the long-term chart, and quite a few upside targets again around those levels on the short-term charts, and the very short-term chart we're seeing here on the 60-minute chart, again upside targets to play for, so looking pretty strong. The Nasdaq is really the leading market, breaking to new highs. The Nasdaq Composite broke 6,000 for the first time ever yesterday, really has gapped up this week effectively. Lots of upside targets here, a further 2% upside on the short-term chart, 13.5% on the medium term, and so we really are just seeing the Nasdaq powering ahead. The Dow was up strongly yesterday with very strong performances from DuPont, Caterpillar, and McDonald's. Really strong earnings announcements here in the US, and that's effectively driving the market forward. So the Dow really looking pretty strong there. The Russell 2000 again breaking to new highs, breaking out of its range as well. We're not quite breaking the February-March high here, but we are just breaking to the upside, and it's looking very strong. The futures this morning, we're seeing the S&P future down very, very slightly, 0.05%, and the Nasdaq E-mini up very slightly, 0.05%. So really flat at the moment, no heads up as to which way the markets are going to open. Looking at FTSE, it's down very, very slightly, just 2 points. It hasn't really seen the rally that we've seen in the US in the 100, but looking at the FTSE 250, this market looking really, really strong, having run all of this year. UK mid-caps is where the action really is. The DAX breaking to higher levels as well, just starting to test this 2015 high that we saw, and the Nikkei also rising strongly on that weaker yen, so that's looking good too. The Hang Seng rising strongly, as is the Shanghai Composite, still looking pretty bearish in the medium term, and coming back into bearishness on the on the medium term, and the short term is bearish. And the long term is still bearish below the cloud as well. So China is still not a foregone conclusion as a rising market. Looking at Sensex, that's looking very strong, the Indian market. And we've activated a new upside target, 32% upside in the medium term. India looking very, very exciting still. The S&P Australian 200 index looking stronger, again bullish above all three time frames. Crude oil, so we look at commodities now. Crude oil, Brent's still below the cloud, and we've got a new downside target of 51. So that's 1.35% downside, and we really just are struggling at the moment. So we've had that rally at the beginning of April, and we've come off, and we are heading into the weak time of year where crude oil doesn't really do much. So it'll be very interesting to see. $50, very important level there for Brent crude. WTI we see here. It's also falling away. We're below the $50 mark at 49.26 at the moment, so that's hit a psychological level. We've got downside targets of 48 and 48.50 and 46.70, so that's downside potential of 5%. Really, this 47.50 level is pretty key. If we break below that, that's the same as the $50 on Brent crude. That would be bearish. Nat gas just struggling at this low $3 level. Seems like we've been at $3 for a very long time, and it just is struggling to get above the cloud on the short and medium term charts. Taking a look at some of the other commodities, heating oil, very similar as we would expect to the Brent crude. Cocoa is up, but still very weak on all three time frames. So just because you see a big rise doesn't necessarily mean that it's important when the trend is so clearly down. And taking a look at gold, it's just recovering a little bit this morning, but it has been quite bearish the last few days, fallen back about $20 from the sort of high 1280s back to the mid 1260s, and so we're just seeing that playing out here in the medium term chart. But we're bullish, remember, bullish long term, bullish medium term, short term we're not, and the 1371 target is still intact. So we're just seeing a sell-off hitting resistance here on gold. So at the moment it just looks like it's pausing for Brents, but we've got to wait for another move higher. Silver, similar picture, of course. Precious metals across the board looking pretty similar. Looking at US government yields, 10-year Treasury sitting at 2.33%. A lot of talk here in Congress about corporate tax rates, but that's not really having a big effect on the bond market, but certainly is on stocks. And tech stocks would be very affected by this corporate tax rate are moving very dramatically. So we're seeing Apple up strongly, Google just going to the moon. This stock really, really rocketing. We had this target of 887 given way back in early April, and we're at much lower levels, and we're seeing that now playing out. And we've still got very good upside on Google, so looks like there's nothing stopping Google. Amazon is above the cloud and still looking bullish. Facebook really rocketing here. Must declare an interest. I own Facebook shares. Really looking quite strong here with lots of upside targets. And Microsoft, another interest I hold as well, and has jumped and popped right out here. So that's looking pretty bullish too. So that's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.